Hey, my name's Paul Holte. I'm a 757 and 767 captain for United Airlines, also known online as my layover life.
Paul, what's going on, man? Welcome to the Pilot podcast.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah, anytime. I'm glad we got this to work out. I messaged you about a month ago, and you're like, hey, man, I'm going to go on a sick vacation for a little bit. So I was paying attention to it, and I was like, oh, man, he really did go on a sick vacation. I was like, dang. My wife's like, why'd we go to Ohio to visit our family for our anniversary? And they went to all over the place. Like, I'm sorry. All right. I'm new to the airlines. All right, give me a break.
Yeah, my wife and I just went to the Amalfi Coast in Italy and celebrated 20 years of marriage, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, we celebrated 11 years, 2 days ago, 3 days ago.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. But they're not here to talk about our anniversaries. We're not here to talk about our lovely wives. Another podcast we will. Shout out to them. They're amazing. But we're here to talk about you. We're here to talk about your aviation journey. And I always like to start at the beginning. So why did you become a pilot in the first place?
So when I was 13 years old, I got a ride in a tow plane, a tow plane that pulls up gliders. And my dad and I were just hanging out at the airport, little grass strip near where I grew up in Minnesota. And my dad actually talked to the tow plane pilot and asked him, hey, could my son go for a ride? And it was literally a $5, just ride with the tow plane pilot. And I went up when I was 13 and got hooked on that, 8-minute airplane ride. And so the next summer, I started taking flying lessons, and my dad saw that I was obviously interested in flying and said, but I was also getting really bad grades in school at the time. So he said, all right, well, for every A you get 1 hour flying. And for every B you get a half hour flying. So overnight, I went from C's and D's to A's and B's and started my flying lessons. Of course, back when you're 14, you don't need to fly, 4 times a week. So I was flying once a month or twice a month, maybe. And eventually soloed a couple days after my 16th birthday, and then got my license on my 17th birthday, and then got my instrument rating while I was still in high school when I was 18. Okay. And then went on to college. And I'm sorry?
I said the bug hit you hard then.
Yeah. I think by the time I got to college, I had about, it was almost 250 hours. So I got my commercial rating shortly after I got to college, and from there I was, throughout college I picked up a bunch of different flying jobs, from flying skydivers to I flew a Cessna 210 for a company, and I ultimately, the coolest job I got was sitting in the right seat of a Cessna Citation. We didn't fly very much, but for a college kid to be building jet time was a pretty big deal. Yeah. So that was awesome.
So when did becoming an airline pilot kind of enter into your brain, or that being the end goal of the career? Was it that first flight where like, all right, I love this. How do you make money doing this? Or was it, all right, I love this. Let's go for a flight. I'll continue this and kind of see where it goes.
Yeah, no, I knew I wanted to be a pilot. I didn't necessarily know I wanted to be an airline pilot. And it wasn't until probably I started flying that Citation, the guy I was flying with, Neil, he used to be an airline pilot, and then he retired from that and became a corporate pilot. And it wasn't until I really started talking with him more. I didn't know if I wanted to be a corporate pilot or an airline pilot or a cargo pilot or, my biggest ambition was flying a Learjet, flying bank checks around. And
I can't get any better than that. I just want to be in my Learjet flying checks. Yeah.
And he said, you know what? For a career, you want to be an airline pilot. Corporate flying is really cool, but you're also pumping your own gas sometimes and making hotel reservations and filing your own flight plans, which is not hard or necessarily bad, but airline flying, you walk down the jetway, you take a left, they've done everything for you. You just show up and fly airplanes, and it's a great career. And I can't thank him enough for giving me those words of wisdom, because it's turned into a great career.
Yeah, I'm relatively new to that style of flying. I came from flying corporate or fractional. And the idea of just turning left was so foreign to me. It's you check your phone in the morning. all your flight plans are done, taken care of, but you're chasing catering, you're trying to figure out bags, you're trying to figure out where's the airplane, is in the hangar, do I pull it out, what time do I pull it out, how much fuel do we need, all that kind of stuff. And now having the ability to literally just turn left and just sit down and, you take a little break, you look at the plane, you're like, all right, let me do my pre-flight flows, I'm in the 737, so it's like, I'll reach all the way back and try to greet everything. But it really is true. It's hard to beat the idea of just turning left. Corporate, you can make good money. There can be good lifestyle. Sometimes they run you down pretty hard, but I don't think it can be beat. I'm kind of an airline truther now. Granted, I'm getting ready to start my 8th month. So I'm relatively new, haven't been burned too bad yet. But yeah, I'm an airline truther now, man. Never thought I'd ever say that, but here we are.
Yeah. Any pilot loves flying airplanes. So they'll do whatever it takes to fly an airplane. But for a, 30-year career, to just be able to walk down the jetway and hang a left, it makes it so much easier, and you can really just enjoy the flying and the layovers.
Absolutely. When you were doing your training in high school, what did your friends think? I had a friend that was 16 and he was getting his private. And granted, my dad was a pilot, so I was aware of aviation, but I was still like, dude, that's crazy. Like, you're only 16. How are you training? Was that similar for you?
It was similar to me. I mean, I caught I grew up in a small town, so it kind of caught the town's attention. I ended up in the newspaper a couple times, and as far as other kids though, I feel like I've always kind of stood out from the normal crowd. So it didn't really bother me at all that I played tennis a little bit in high school, but I wasn't super into sports or anything. Like flying was my sport, so I'd go mountain biking in the morning, go to school, and then go out to the airport in the afternoon, and that was kind of my deal. And a few kids caught on to it, and I think one other kid in high school ended up taking lessons for a little while. But I don't know. I've always kind of liked being, not that flying airplanes is being an outsider, but I was the one kid in town that was doing it. So
yeah, I mean, not everyone does it. And like you said, some people will take up a lesson or even get their private, and then they kind of just fizzle out and they just stop flying altogether. It's not something that people continuously do or even make it all the way to an airline pilot. So it definitely is a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure. But it shows a lot of, fortitude to put up with, because really you have to love flying to put up with all the learning and all the lessons and all the stuff. I mean, it's easy to look at you or me now like, all right, well, you're an airline pilot. Oh, that must have been easy. You just sign up and they teach you and you become an airline pilot. There's a lot of not super fun times where you're studying and you're working hard, and a lot of people don't see those hours spent, not flying an airplane and just sitting on your desk looking over the FARs,
I remember specifically a certain time when I was flying, when I took a bunch of time off. I was playing football in college, so I was going back and forth, and I got to a flight and it was so bad. Like, I mean, one of those flights of your CFI, you're like, whoa, this dude, that's not good. And I was just, why can't I get this? And I think some people have that moment. It's pretty regular. Like if you have that feeling, it's okay. I had that. You probably had that. A bunch of people have had it at the time, but it's something that you do forget, and people don't look at when you're in Italy, you're on a layover, you're living your dream. They forget the fact that you pretty much sacrificed for a long time, and it's not like it is today where you could just get 1,500 hours or 1,000 hours and hop right into a regional jet and start flying jet time. You were flying checks, you're flying whatever you could, and not making any money. That's what's amazing. Like literally no money. In some cases, you were just begging for a ride, and you're like, dude, I don't need to eat. I don't need anything. Just put me in the plane. I'll be good.
Yeah. I mean, flying that Cessna Citation, I didn't make money doing that. That was just, 2 hours of jet time once a day, which was amazing. But that's stuff you can't pay for. College kid, you can't just go pay for 2 hours of jet time. That would cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So really, to do it for free is I wouldn't do it for free today, but when you're just trying to build time, it's the way to go.
So talk a little about that, because a lot of people message me and they're like, hey, you always talk about putting yourself out there, getting that airport job, just talking to people around you. Talk about how you were able to, I don't want to say finagle or finesse, but talk your way into a right seat in a citation or a 210, because it's one of the best ways is just to be there. If you're consistently there, you show an appetite for aviation, and if they just have an inkling that you're a good person, don't burn any bridges, opportunities will come to you by literally just being there. So talk a little bit about how you got those jobs, how you found some sweet flying that you can do.
Yeah, literally every job I've ever had has not been an advertisement in the newspaper or online or whatever. I'm kind of dating myself, an advertisement in the newspaper. Sure, no one's. But literally every job I've had has been because I knew somebody associated with that job. So I got a job working at an FBO in St. Paul, and that's how I met the guy who flew the Cessna 210. And when he quit, then he knew that I was interested in that, and he called me, and I interviewed for the job and got it. And then, the citation job when I was in college, I literally met the guy at a restaurant. I saw him at a restaurant, and he was looking at, airport charts. He was like doing a lesson with somebody or something. And I walked over and said, "Hey, it looks like you guys are pilots. Hey, I'm Paul. I'm a pilot too. And what do you fly?" "Oh, I fly citation." "Oh, okay, cool. Well, if you ever need someone to sit in the right seat, here's my number." And just literally just being nice to people, being a good human, and showing that you're interested is kind of how I got all my jobs. Even my airline jobs. I met a guy who after college I worked for Pinnacle, which was a Northwest commuter, which is now called Endeavor. And I met a guy who had just started at Pinnacle, and he told me exactly how to get the interview. He said, "Listen, all you have to do, send your resume, call them. They won't know where your resume is, but just call them and tell them you're interested and you had sent your resume and you want them to check on it. And they'll invite you for an interview. And then the next day you'll fly down for an interview and you'll get hired." And that's literally what happened. I sent my resume. A week later, I called them. "Oh, I can't find your resume, but can you come down tomorrow?" "Sure. Yeah." And then, getting hired, going from Pinnacle to, I got hired by Continental, and then obviously we merged with United. Same thing. I was friends with a guy I had met who didn't even work for Continental or Continental Express. But I knew that he used to work for Continental Express. And so we were friends for 2 years. And I finally asked him, kind of when I was ready to move on from Pinnacle, I said, "Hey, do you know anyone at Continental that would maybe help me get hired?" Because this was 2006, so Continental was doing really well. They were hiring kind of like we're hiring now, 25 people a week or 40 people a week or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of one of the main places to go. And he said, "Yeah, I think I know a guy at Continental that might be able to help you." So he called that guy, and then I called that guy, and
I called someone else.
Right, yeah. And that guy walked into the chief pilot's office, and it turned out that my friend, who I'd been friends with for 2 years, used to be the chief pilot at Continental Express.
It's hilarious.
So he had a great, I didn't know that. He never told me that. That's not why we were friends, But you never know who you're going to meet along the way. And the power, not maybe power, but, like the influence that they have. And so, like you said, don't burn any bridges, and keep all the phone numbers you can, and you never know who's going to be able to help.
That even goes for just like commuting home on an airline, or just like in any kind of circumstance. I've met a chief pilot randomly probably once or twice so far, which may not sound like a lot, but it's more than it should happen. It's right. Like you shouldn't just run in. You think there's so little amount of chief pilots for the airlines. It's like there's been no aviation. Like it was at a coffee shop, it was at whatever. And it's like, "Oh, I'm a chief pilot." Like, "Well, cool, dude. Hi, my name's Justin."
Yeah.
Are you hiring right now?
And you never know. Like if you work for a regional, you're trying to get on with a major. When you're commuting somewhere, sitting in the cockpit, there's certainly a chance that the guy sitting there is the chief pilot or is one of the main check airmen or whatever, and has a lot of pull. And if you have a good conversation, like that could be all it takes to get your
takes.
name to the top of the interview list.
So moral of the story, if you didn't take anything away from this podcast, is treat everyone like they're the chief pilot of the airline that you want to go to.
That's a great way. A great way to say it. Yeah.
Just be nice to everyone, go above and beyond in the airline.
That's right.
So you are at the airline, and I think it's really interesting because obviously Minnesota, all the way through and through, the A's, the accent isn't really coming out. I'm not going to lie. So someone somewhere has told you how to get or wash out that accent, because I don't get much Minnesota from you. But you mentioned Continental and you said 2006, and I'm going to put some two and two together that Delta would have been big by now out of Minneapolis. The merger would have gone through. Why not try to go to Delta? Did you want to commute? You wanted to go to Houston, or did Continental have a pretty big role in Minneapolis at the time?
They did not have a big role in Minneapolis. At the time, in 2006, I think that was before the Northwest Delta merger. So
was it? Okay.
Yeah, I think the United Continental merger and the Northwest Delta merger,
look it up,
were around the same time. I want to say 2010.
Was it really?
I think so. Yeah. I know it wasn't. I know I wasn't trying to go to Delta.
2008. Delta and Northwest 2008.
2008. Okay.
Yeah, so you're right.
So Northwest at the time wasn't hiring anyone from Pinnacle. Basically, I think I knew one or two people out of, a lot of people were leaving Pinnacle, but only one or two went to Northwest. And I think, from what I understand, it was the way Northwest saw it was like 3 training events. Like they had to train you at Northwest, but now they had to train a new captain at Pinnacle, and they had to hire a new first officer at Pinnacle. So I think, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's kind of how I heard that it was seen.
Bad idea. Let's not take any of those guys or girls.
Right. But really back then, hiring wasn't like it is now. United wasn't hiring, or maybe they were hiring, but they're also doing some furloughing, and Delta really wasn't on my radar, because I grew up in Minneapolis. And the only reason Continental popped on my radar is because I knew a few people at Pinnacle that had gone to Continental. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly I knew a guy who used to be the chief pilot for Continental Express. And really back then, like, you just went to the first airline to hire you.
Yeah.
The first major airline to hire you. So Continental was the first major airline to hire me, and that's where I went. Because getting an interview with Northwest was nearly impossible. So
was that let's say before the idea of Continental, before the connections, was the goal Northwest? Was that like the dream, fly out of Minneapolis and fly for Northwest?
No, it actually wasn't. The one airline that I kind of had in the back of my head since I was, college age was Southwest. And so in early 2006, back then, Southwest required you to have a 737 type rating.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were just paying for a 737 type rating and then immediately getting an interview with Southwest. And so I did that. I went and paid for a 737 type rating.
Damn.
And then got an interview with Southwest, but did not get hired. And that was in 2006.
Oh,
and
wow.
then in the first part of 2006. And then the later, in October or whatever of 2006, I got an interview. That's when I got the interview with Continental. And then, so then I obviously stayed with Continental and it's been great. But I can't, Continental was doing really well back then, and then the merger with United only made it better, and it's been awesome, man.
It's crazy how everything happens for a reason, right? I'm sure there's a lot of disappointment. You're like, I just dropped an absurd amount of money for this type rating just to get this one job, and
it
to
was
not get that.
$7,370.
You'll never forget it. You need that tattooed on you somewhere, just for how much it was. Just to remind yourself every day and show it to Southwest. Be like, see, look, you messed up.
Yeah, and I'm sure if I had been hired by Southwest, it would have been great too. And people that were hired around the same time, they're captains and they're doing great.
Oh, for sure. Your maybe your videos would be a little bit different. There wouldn't be my layover life all the way in Italy and Europe and all those other places. But Omaha and Tulsa are pretty cool too.
Yeah.
There's no shame.
You really, I mean, you can have a good layover anywhere you are. I mean, it helps to be in Rome or whatever, but
for sure, that's the goal.
But if you're with the right people, you can have a good time pretty much anywhere.
I want to talk a little about maybe the disappointment that you went through with not getting that Southwest job, because it sounded like it was what you wanted, right? Like it was what you looked to, it's what you work for, and you spent the money to do that. And I'm sure everyone said, hey, you get that type rating, you're pretty much a shoe and it's going to happen. So to not get that job, talk about what was going through your head. Was it a give up moment? Was it, I can't do this, I'm going to be at a regional forever? Kind of talk about the emotions you had.
Yeah, it was disappointing. Maybe I guess it was more of a learning experience. Like I remember there was multiple interviews throughout the day, and I remember one of the last interviews, the guy asked me one of the most basic questions, like, tell me about a time you messed up or whatever. Like I can't remember what the question was, but I literally had no answer. And I was just like, yeah, I don't know. And he's like, just anything is fine. Like, it's just like, anything. I don't know if I was tired or just running out of steam or whatever, but it's just like, yeah, I don't really have anything for you. He's like, all right. And like literally just like walked me to the door. Like, you can go catch your flight home now.
Like, have a good day, man. We'll see you later.
So I feel like, I mean, if there was a reason I didn't get hired, that was probably it. Man. I guess I saw it as a learning experience, and
for sure.
And went on from there. And I had done another interview. I think it was with Midwest Express, which was like an airline in Milwaukee that they don't exist anymore, but they flew 717s, and I also didn't get hired by them. So, and I think that was before Southwest. So I don't know. I guess I'd been used to rejection. A lot of girls said no to me in college and high school.
All it took was one, though. All it took was one. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's kind of how I saw it. It's like, it only takes one person to say yes. And there's other airlines out there. And
definitely.
And I saw other people at Pinnacle not getting hired places. And I guess kind of assumed that was part of the process,
And I think it still is, to be honest with you. I mean, everyone says how easy it is to get hired, or especially, let's say, like when I was hired, or kind of 6 months before that, or even the last 2 years, people kind of have the assumption that it's really easy to get hired, but it's still pretty easy for them to say no to you. It's you have this, you're still not guaranteed to get that job. You still have to perform. You still have to come up with an answer for tell me about a time, whatever they ask. Yeah, so it does happen still. And I think disappointment in not getting the job of your dreams is something you should maybe not disappointment, but not getting your dream airline job is something you should kind of keep in the back of your mind of what you would do next. It's still good to have that goal, to have the place you want to go, but you also need to understand that just because Delta said no, United said no, or American said no, doesn't mean that one of the other ones won't say yes and give you a great job. At the end of the day, we do the same thing. We fly airplanes. We take people where they need to go. The planes may be different. The layovers may be different, but you're going to be an airline pilot. You're going to make relatively the same amount of money wherever you go. Just your cities you live in and the cities you go to might be a little different. Yeah.
And that's not to say that, United says no. That's not to say that they won't call you again in 2 years. As a matter of fact, after I got hired by Continental, I re-interviewed with Southwest in
Oh, really?
2008, and then they said yes, but they were putting off class dates because that
Mhm.
2008 was like the recession time or whatever, and so I had a job offer, but they put off class dates until an unknown time. And that's when I switched airplanes from the 737 at Continental to the 757 and 767.
Yeah.
And initially, my thinking was, I just want to go, grab a couple more type ratings, and before I leave Continental. And then we merged with United, and then I was like, and once I started flying the 757, 767, I kind of fell in love with flying all over again. Like,
Yeah.
or maybe I fell in love with travel, and then I decided I wasn't going to go to Southwest, and I was going to keep flying to Europe and do awesome layovers. And plus, you don't want to give up. By the time Southwest actually called and offered me a class date, it was 2011. So I would have been giving up 5 years of seniority at Continental / United. So
did you make it out of that time without getting furloughed or anything happening?
yeah, I got furloughed from Pinnacle right after September 11th because I was hired by Pinnacle in May of 2001. So I finished training in August or September, and
Great
or
time.
August. Yeah, September 2001 was my first month as a line holder, or as being a regular line pilot.
Yeah.
And so I got furloughed in October, and then I was only furloughed for 1 month, which is crazy. Like most people get furloughed for years or a decade or whatever. But I was fortunate. I got furloughed for 1 month, and then I was back. And so September 11th I didn't lose a lot of flying because of that. But, when you're furloughed, you don't know if it's going to be 1 month or 1 year or 2 years.
No. Like, do I need to get a job somewhere? Like, do I need to learn how to lay brick? Like, what's going on?
Right.
It's like,
yeah. So no, when I got hired by Continental, there was about 1,500 people that got hired underneath me pretty quickly. And then I think in 2008, we furloughed like 147 people. And, but I wasn't part of that. And then they all came back, I think in 2010, once we announced the merger with United.
Nice. When I thought something was really interesting, you said that flying the 7.5, the 7.6, it kind of brought your love back of flying. Would you say that was kind of just like been beaten down by the regional life of a lot of legs, short layovers, or would you say it's just kind of just a job in general? Eventually every once in a while you're going to get kind of the stage where you're burnt out and you need to take that new step to try something else.
I think it was more a lot of legs and short layovers and, those kind of struggles that you go through at a regional. Cause now I'm doing 1 leg a day, never de-icing, and then you're going to, like, I went to Bath and went to the Roman baths and I went to Stonehenge and I went to Normandy in France and, to start doing stuff on layovers that weren't really an option when you were going to Omaha and Des Moines. But the flying itself is awesome too, because it's, 7 or 8 hours of flying in a regional jet is a lot of work because you're making 2 to 4 or 5 landings a day, and you're with the same person, which I know sounds silly, but like when we take off and go to Europe, we sit with one guy for 2 hours or 2.5 hours, and then we go back and take a nap, and then we come back and sit with a different guy for 2.5 hours, and it makes the flight go by an 8-hour flight, the same 8 hours of flying. It makes it go by so fast because you're constantly with someone else to talk to, or you're taking a nap, or you're watching a movie or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you get there, and now you're in Rome, and you got all day to explore. So
talk about your first trip from being being a regional pilot and then getting on the 7.5, 7.6, flying across the country. And realizing how different your life was than what you just came from.
Yeah.
Were you just shocked? Like, I can't believe I'm going to get paid to do this. Like, that wasn't real work.
Yeah. I think one of the things I was most worried about when I went to the 757 and 767 was, how am I going to handle a really long flight?
Yeah.
And then my first trip was to Paris, and I was like, oh, well, from Newark, it's only 6.5 hours to Paris. And you get a nap. Like, that's super easy. Like, that's, it wasn't, I was getting on a 18-hour flight. It was like
right.
6.5 hours. It goes
it's like
by really fast.
From DCA or Dulles to LAX,
San Francisco or whatever. Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. And even when I got on the 737, so I started on the 737 at Continental. And even when I got on that, it was a little bit different because we did even like Houston to Anchorage, which is a 7-hour flight. So like it was different than regional flying. And at Pinnacle, I basically flew in the upper Midwest or sometimes, as far south as Memphis or whatever. But so just to be flying to Phoenix or Los Angeles or Seattle, like that was all new to me. So that was, it was fun. And we went to places I'd never even heard of before, like Quito, Ecuador, or Guayaquil, or, some cities I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
Until I started working for Continental.
When, I think it's important to talk about what your lifestyle is like, personally at home, like financially with working at a regional back then and first year pay at say Continental, because now they have the idea, or most pilots that get hired, they can make $100,000 pretty much at a regional. First year at an airline, you can make $100,000, but that wasn't the case, 16 years ago or even like 8 years ago. I want to say it was closer to like 40 grand. Is that what it was at United when you got hired, or Continental?
My starting pay at Continental was $25 an hour, so that equated to roughly $2,500 a year. And I had come from captain pay at Pinnacle, which at the time was $80,000 a year, which is crazy today. I thought I was like living my best life, and really it was good. I was living in Minneapolis. Which is kind of where I grew up, and based in Minneapolis. And so what was really hard when I went to Continental, especially for my wife, because my wife only knew, we were newly married then, she only knew living in Minneapolis, based in Minneapolis, making a decent living. And then I went to Continental, where we had no health insurance for 6 months, and we're making $25 an hour, so $25,000 a year. And I'm commuting now to Houston to fly the 737. So I'm gone a lot more, not making any money, spending money on hotels in Houston. And it was tough. We had saved up a little bit because we knew that's what you did back then. You saved up because you knew your first year at an airline was going to be hard. And so it kind of prepared for it a little bit, but it was still difficult. We made a lot of sacrifices, and there was days where there's $80 in the checkbook, and it's like, well, we don't get paid again for 5 days. So
feeling good. Yeah, your wife's like, this is supposed to be your dream job, right? Like you wanted, like, this is the pinnacle of your career when we were just at Pinnacle making $80,000. Like, what's going on? Yeah, it's. I feel like I'm in a similar kind of stage of that right now, because I was a 7-year captain where I was last. I had the potential to make pretty good money. Come to the airline I'm at now, and I'm taking like $120,000 pay cut for the first year. Flying, gone more, commuting, short call reserve, long call reserve, going back and forth. And my wife's like, "Are we sure this was a good idea?" I'm like, "It's going to get better. I promise. Just watch my layover life. Watch his videos. It's all good. All right, it's going to be us one day."
It definitely does get better. But and like I said before, like, you have to love flying to put up with a lot of this stuff. And I don't hear this super often, but I have heard people say, oh, I want to become a pilot because it pays well, or because you go cool places. And it's like, it's not just that easy, you know. Like, if you want to be a pilot, you should really love flying airplanes.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, just, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on, and you can get a lot of money. I mean, you hear crazy stories about airline pilots pulling in like $1 million, but they're also playing the system and they're gone all the time. It's like, I don't want that. I want to make like lower to mid salary of what you can make based on how hard you're working, and just be home as much as possible. That's the goal right there. And have cool layovers.
Yeah. I think I told you my schedule this month. I had 2 weeks of vacation, and literally I picked up a trip this coming weekend just to supplement our Italy vacation. But had I not picked up that trip, I would have been off from October 5th until November 7th with 2 weeks of vacation.
That's crazy.
Which is crazy. Like,
absolutely crazy.
And getting paid very well for that, you know.
It just takes some seniority, right? Like you said, like just wait a little bit, and it does get better. It gets sweeter. Learning how to play, kind of not play the system, but learn the games that you are allowed to take advantage of to maximize your days off and pay. It's almost like a doctorate. I feel like trying to figure out, one, PBS, two, how airlines pay, how you need to follow up with the right people to make sure you get that pay.
Right.
So there's a lot going on, man.
Yeah, but you know those years go by really fast, and I feel like it was last week that I was like starting out at Continental, and here I am. You know, it'll be 18 years this year, which is
dang, dude, that's crazy. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
it's been awesome so far, and hopefully it only gets better.
Yeah, let's hope so. Yeah, we don't want to go down. We don't no more down. We just want to keep rising up. All right, it's time to have a solid stretch of 10 plus years of the good times.
Yeah, that's right.
Have you been? What planes have you flown for United? You mentioned Continental. You mentioned 737 to start, 75, 76, or was it 75? Sorry, I heard a 73 somewhere in there. And then, have you pretty much been on the 75, 76 for most of your career there?
Most of it, yeah. I started on the 737, so I flew that for 2.5 years or 3 years. And then I came to 757 and 767 in 2009, and I've been on it since. So I've got over 10,000 hours on that airplane, and I've been on that for 15 years, and the last 3 years as a captain. So,
which one do you like better, 75 or 76?
Well, the 76-400 pays the most, so I kind of like that one. There's actually a big pay difference that I don't really know why. The 767-300 is narrow body pay.
Oh, really?
The 767-400 is wide body pay.
Oh, that
and there's a big gap there. So all the 767-400 trips go super senior because they pay. I mean, literally on one trip, it's thousands of dollars more.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So
it's crazy what the airline throw in there in those contracts.
I know.
You're like,
nuts.
What?
But from a flying perspective, I don't know. The 757 is pretty fun to fly. So,
yeah. Now,
but I like it all. It's fun. I just love it all.
What are you going to do when United comes out and says, hey, we're retiring the 75, 76? They've been around for a while, so it's not going to be there for that much longer, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think in theory they're supposed to retire at least the 757s in 2030 or 2029. So that's only 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Ideally, I would maybe go to the 777 as a captain. Right now, I'd be like 99% on the 777 as a captain in San Francisco. So I don't want to do that because I don't really want to be on reserve again. So I'll hold out on this airplane until they kick me off of it.
Yeah.
And then, but it'd be fun to go out to San Francisco and do some of the Australia and Asia flying and just try something new. 15 or 20 years on one airplane is probably probably too long.
Talk a little bit about commuting, because someone that lives in a city that's not great for the airline, I would say, maybe that's the wrong way to put it, but you're never going to live in base, living in Minneapolis, working for
Right.
United. It's not going
Right.
to happen. So has commuting, everyone always tells me airlines are way better when you're in base, and I'm sure you can agree to that. Just makes your life a little bit easier because you got to plan a little bit more. You know, that one trip now you might need to go the night before, you lose another night at home. So talk about doing that for a career. Is it something that you think a lot of people can just get used to, and it just kind of, you work it in and you make it work? Or do you think a lot of people, it's kind of a big deterrent in the airline they go to, or even their quality of life at an airline?
I mean, I think you're for sure going to have a better quality of life and the ability to make more money if you live where you're based. Cause then you can pick up, those like a 1 day trip that pays 400% premium pay or whatever, like you have those options to do that. I like living in Minneapolis. This is where I grew up and this is where my family is. And now it's where my kids go to school. And, so I don't know that I'm committed to living here forever, but for sure till our kids are out of high school. And I don't know, it's never bothered me enough to seriously consider moving. We looked at it for a while, looked at moving somewhere, but we like it here. And I don't know, like, especially being on the airplane I'm on, I can fly into Newark in the morning and go to Europe at night, come back at noon, and then fly home and be home for dinner most of the time. Not all the trips are like that. Obviously, if I do a domestic trip, sometimes they start early or end late. But, next month I've got 18 days off, and I'm not like the most senior person on the fleet. 15 to 18 days off is pretty standard, and you're still home a lot, So I don't know. I don't mind commuting, but I know a lot of people do.
Do you feel like when you mentioned that you can commute early in the morning and then you fly a trip later to go to Europe, do you think that takes out of, fatigue? Not saying you are fatigued, but does it just add an extra toll on it? Or are you able to kind of relax in the airline and you don't feel like you're working? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I feel like I almost always take the first flight to Newark, and I feel like waking up early to take that first flight sets me up for like a good nap schedule. So like I wake up early, if I'm not in the jump seat, I sleep on the plane to Newark. Then I hang out for a while, and then I take a nap in the crew lounge. And then I go fly, and then I get a nap on the plane to Europe, and then I get to Europe and take a nap when I'm there. So I don't know. I feel like if I lived in Newark and I'm home and doing stuff all day or hanging out with my kids or whatever, well, I might not be taking a nap before I go to the airport. So I still might be up in the morning and up all day and then go to the airport. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't feel like I'm more fatigued than if I lived in Newark, because I feel like I'd just be doing different things.
Yeah, you'd be doing your to-do list, you'd be building something or something. You're like, oh, I got to go to work. I got to fly to Europe. Jeez. Yeah. Take a nap. Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense.
But I will say, like, last year we brought our daughter to Paris, and we took Delta from Minneapolis to Paris just because we were doing a weekend, like a birthday thing with our daughter. And it was just easier to take a direct flight from Minneapolis to Paris.
100%.
A friend of mine happened to be working the flight, and he lived 2 hours away in Wisconsin somewhere. And I told my wife, I was like, this is what life would be like if I was based here. Like, I'd be home all day. I'd leave for the airport at 7 p.m. and I'd go to Paris. There's certainly something to be said for that. I probably lose, if you were to add up the hours, I probably lose 3 days at home every month just flying back and forth. So, it's certainly not for everybody, but it's also, like I said, if I'd been hired by Northwest or Delta, then it'd be a different story. But
absolutely. But yeah, it's
we
all
could
worked out.
always move, but I don't know. We'll probably wait till after the kids are gone. So,
let's talk a little bit about Instagram, YouTube, social media. What was, because obviously you've been an airline pilot for 18 years. Social media has been, or not, you've been working for Continental United for 18 years. Social media has been around for a good bit. But what, probably 2-3 years ago, was it when you started making videos? Was it a little bit before that? I feel like I'm trying to remember the exact time that I remember seeing the first My Air Life. And I feel like it was around 2020, 2021. What was it about that time? Did you always want to do this? Kind of get into a little bit about just starting My Layover Life.
Yeah. I feel like that's always been like a creative side to me. Like back when I was like at Pinnacle, I had a blog, like, cause everyone had blogs back then, like a written out blogs and, I don't know. I've just always kind of had a creative side to me. I started My Layover Life Instagram probably, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I started it. I have another Instagram account that's like family stuff and private. And I started it because when I came on to I was doing all these really cool trips, and my normal Instagram account was like a picture of my family, and then a picture in Rome, and a picture in Milan, and a picture in Athens, and a picture, and it was like turning into like too much work stuff. So I just thought I'd separate the two and have one that's just for like what I do on layovers. And it, it was like your normal Instagram account. It wasn't, nobody starts with 180,000 followers.
Not at all.
Yeah. So it was years of just a normal Instagram following. And then I started my YouTube channel, and I started that I think 5 years ago. And initially I started it because I saw all these people going on layovers to Rome and, Athens or whatever, and literally just slam clicking, staying in their hotel room for 24 hours or 48 hours. And I was like, there's so much to do here. Even if you've been here 100 times, there's still something you can find that's unique. And so I started my YouTube channel mostly as an encouragement to other crew members, or, if you're going to Lisbon and you're looking for something to do, you could look at my videos and see what I did and do one of those things on your layover. That, of course, didn't really take off because they were just travel videos. Like, they weren't aviation related at all. So if you go back to my first probably 40 videos on YouTube, none of them have anything United or any really indication that I'm a United or a pilot at all. They're just, suddenly I'm in Lisbon and suddenly I'm in Rome for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's way better travel. So they were just travel videos basically. Mm-hmm. So there's way better travel YouTubers than me. And so once I started putting in like behind the scenes, if you will, aviation stuff and like work stuff, that's when it kind of picked up some traction, and people started watching it more. And it's been fun to interact with people, and like there's a lot of people from the military have found use of the videos because they don't have any idea what airline flying is like, and you know, people who work at regional airlines see them and see kind of what their future looks like, and then I've run into even business travelers who just like, they're like, they fly all the time, but they don't really see exactly what pilots are doing or flight attendants are doing, and kind of gives them a perspective as to what our jobs are like. So it's been fun to just meet people in the airport and see how those videos are encouraging them or helping them plan their trips. And
when you decided to bring kind of United, or I'm a pilot, and specifically show more, not like top secret United stuff, but just like be pretty open with where you are, where you work, Was there hesitation about that at all? Because, airlines historically have not really, I don't want to say they're not in favor of social media, but they're just so hesitant to kind of accept it or really want their brand out there because the way they see it, they have 15,000 pilots. If they say yes to everyone, then someone's going to tarnish their name or bring them down, So I guess the question is, what steps did you take when mentioning United? Was it more of I'm going to do this and ask for forgiveness later? Was it just hopefully they never see it? Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I never got official permission to do anything. When I started my YouTube channel, I had already kind of been in contact with the social media team, and the social media team had started an influencer camp for internal influencers, if you will. So I guess I kind of knew that they were on board with social media stuff, and I was kind of part of that group. So I just started making videos, and obviously being very careful about none of my videos are filmed in the cockpit while we're flying, and if I show a shot looking out the window, I'm clear to show that you can see that this is shot from a passenger seat and not the cockpit window. And I'm very careful about recording, and now I feel like enough people kind of know what I do that I'm not even going to record a video in the cockpit because the guy next to me will see that or whatever. I don't want to be a bad example of what social media is. So but yeah, I never really got official permission. It just kind of turned into they like what I'm doing, and now I work pretty closely with the United social media team. So
I was gonna say, it seems like they kind of accepted it because you just did the video with them, where I think it's a commercial. I haven't got a chance to watch yet, but I saw the commercial. I believe you guys call them 1K flyers or 1,000,000 miles. I think you gave something to someone that flew an astronomical amount of miles with you guys. So they definitely have seemed to have accepted it. And it seems like United, out of all the airlines, maybe is currently, this could always change, right? Is the most social media friendly, I would say. Or maybe it just seems like most pilot influencers see happen to be United pilots. I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one is which.
Yeah.
The social media team does a great job handling everything, and they are very encouraging they put on a social media camp every year, and this past year, there's 100 or 120 influencers from pilots, flight attendants, gate agents, ramp agents. Everyone's who has a presence on Instagram or social media gets to go to this camp and learn more about photography tips and how to make better TikToks and that kind of stuff. And
remember, say positive things about the brand, only positive things.
Yeah. And there is that too. You can't get on there and rip into passengers or whatever.
You should do this. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I'm a pretty positive person as it is, so it's never been a struggle to but we all have bad days. I'm not, but I don't want to go on Instagram and see your bad day. I'm going there to be entertained, so I'm not going to put my worst days on Instagram. So
I was going to ask, has there been a day where you're you're setting up the video, you set the phone up, and you're doing whatever it is you do, and you just kind of take a pause and you look at it, you're like, I don't feel like doing this today? Or has it been are you able to just turn it on and, be my layover life right then and there?
I feel like there are times when I have to turn it on, and there's other times in one of my last videos, I jumped off a cliff in Switzerland, and when you're doing that kind of stuff, you're just on because it's pretty awesome, but no, for sure. There's days where it's I know I want to record a video on this trip, but I'm not really in the mood today. And I have found that if I have a lot of B-roll footage, I can make up for lack of personality on camera with B-roll and voiceover later in the edit. And so I'm not on for an entire 3-day trip of on camera action, like,
Is it something that you invite other people to come with you all the time when you're on camera, or do you try to do all those kind of on your own and not? The reason I ask that is because for me personally, and I think a lot of other people, it's the idea of being on camera out in public, like holding a camera up, talking to it, or doing like a cool transition, or going up to a rock and, sitting on it, looking at it, talking to people. It can be intimidating, putting yourself out there. What does this person think of me? What is this, what is my my lead flight attendant going to think? Or what's the FO going to, you just kind of, you think about it in your head when in reality, they don't care at all. They're just like, oh, that's cool. He's got a YouTube channel. But in your mind, you're like, oh my gosh, everyone's looking at me, looking at like all that stuff. What do you plan on that?
It still takes a lot to like walk through the airport and talk to the camera.
Yeah.
Especially, I don't do that in uniform or hardly ever.
Yeah.
But if you're in a quiet airport talking to a camera, you feel like everyone is looking at you.
Like,
and maybe they are, and that's fine. And I've kind of come to the point where I was like, I don't care. They don't know that I've got this YouTube channel, or maybe they do now, and it doesn't matter. Like, they'll see it, they'll laugh at me, and that's fine. But I know what I'm putting together here, and I know it's going to be awesome in the end. But as far as recording with other crew members, obviously I always ask, like a video I'm editing right now, the first officer was with me throughout the day and the little adventure we went on, but he didn't really want to be on camera, which is totally fine. And that actually was kind of helpful, because then he held the camera for me, and he was able to like film me doing stuff.
You're my videographer. Cool. You don't want to be in it? Here you
go. You just got a new job.
I'll buy dinner.
Yeah. But I'll ask flight attendants if they're okay, obviously being on camera, and if they're not, that's totally fine. They can stand behind the camera. Like if I'm like in the video I'm editing now, I filmed part of our briefing, and oftentimes I'll do like a real briefing and then I'll be like, can I just sit here and talk with you guys and record that? And like, it's not an official briefing. It's just like to simulate a briefing, that way I'm not.
And we're going to eat Qdoba, and then we're going to do this. That looks really important. Yeah.
Yeah. That way I'm not distracted when I'm trying to record a video. That. But, yeah, I mean, I try to make it fun, and people are either receptive to it or not. And now, like, enough people follow me that they show up and they kind of know that I have a YouTube channel, or know I have an Instagram account. And if I'm going on a trip where I'm planning on doing a video, I'll usually send out an email ahead of time and just say, hey, just so you know, I might be recording a YouTube video. And
how would you say it's received by pilots? Because I would say a lot of times I've seen pilots hate on social media influencers.
Sure.
It's just like natural, right? They think of it as cringe, but I think deep down everyone kind of wants to have that opportunity. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Some people may not want to, but how have you seen the pilot community, especially the United pilots? Do you think they've kind of rallied behind it? Do you think they like it? Do you think some people don't like it? A mix of them, or what would you say?
I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't like it. I don't ever go on message boards or anything, so I don't see all the hate or whatever. But I'm sure some people don't like it, and that's fine. If you don't like it, then it's not for you. Like, I'm not making this for every United pilot. I'm making it for the student pilots and the travelers and the regional pilots who are needing inspiration to like keep showing up to work and keep applying to United or whoever. And if it's, some 64-year-old crusty pilot who doesn't get YouTube or social media, that's fine. That's not for him. Then if he sees it and hates on it, then whatever. It doesn't really bother me too much. But it took me a while to get to that point where I could just blow that off. But just realizing that my videos aren't for everybody, and the people they're not for who see them are probably going to you know, hate on it a little bit,
Yeah,
and
be the
that's
loudest
fine.
usually too. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've, you know, I will say I've never had anyone come up to me in person and say that they hate my videos.
I
You know,
don't
like,
like your videos. Yeah.
yeah. Everyone, you know, I've had a few first officers say that my videos are the reason they want to work for United,
Cool.
and which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's those kind of stories and those kind of people I
Yeah.
fly with that make it worth doing what I'm doing.
I think it's great for airlines to have an ambassador like that. You know, I think there's something between it's a fine line. Like you don't want it to be company sponsored or company pushed or have the feeling of it being very corporate. But if you can find somehow an organic way to have someone show what it's like to work, how they're happy at their job, how they think their airline's the best, you know, and all that kind of stuff, and just be happy and show the cool things they do. I think it's an amazing recruiting tool, and it can help separate that airline from one or the other. Now, there's obviously the dangers of picking the wrong person or having one rogue video go out there that could hurt the airline. But I think overall, it's definitely worth it. And I think what you've done has helped United, along with other influencers that are at United, just put their name brand ahead of someone else. You know, if it comes down to it, you're looking at the applications and which one you want to hit submit first to. Maybe like, Paul, okay, United, that's cool. Let me submit that one first, and you get the, you know, it's just how it works in your brain. So I think all the airlines listening to this, they should kind of take note and maybe try to find their own influencer on YouTube or whatever it is. Not promoting myself. I don't really want to be a YouTube influencer. I mean, it'd be kind of cool, but I can't look at myself in the camera yet. I haven't gotten to that point in my career. But I think it's important. And I think that you've done a good job. The videos are cool, and I hope you continue doing them. I got a little bit more for you, and then we'll go. One is going to be, actually, I'll ask this question first because I got to load everything up. I actually just got called in for a trip a little bit ago, so I have to go to Newark for some reason.
No kidding.
Yeah, tomorrow. Let's see. I'm going to Newark. I'm on the 7-3 domestic side, so not great. But Newark DFW to Austin, Austin DFW to CMH, then Columbus back to Newark. So I need to get my consolidation in, and I'm
awesome.
desperately in need of hours, so I can't say no to any trip. But my phone rang about 20 minutes ago. I was like, what's this? Dang. Oh, okay.
Oh, no.
I went to school in Columbus, so I went to Ohio State, so it'll be good for me to go back to my college town.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
But anyways, the question I have for you first right now is, obviously you have a lot of people that kind of watch your videos. You've probably had the opportunity to kind of tell them this advice, but what are 3 tips you give someone, whether they have 1 hour, 100 hours, 1,000 hours, or they want your career, they want your lifestyle, they want your YouTube channel, everything. What kind of advice would you give to them? And if you can, 3 tips specifically for that.
Yeah. Well, number 1 would be don't give up. You know, my wife and I both train jiu-jitsu, and it's one of those things that, like, it's hard all the time. Like, I'm always getting beat up. You feel like you're never progressing. But what you don't see is, like, the people on either side of you are progressing relatively at the same rate that you are, and just don't give up, because really in the end, like, you're flying an airplane and it's awesome. And, like, if you love flying airplanes, whether you're flying a Cessna or a regional jet or a 777, it's all awesome. It's like, it's so fun. And the fact that you get to fly airplanes for a living, either, you know, now or in the future, it's like, it's the best. I don't know if that was 1 tip or 2 tips or what, but I just don't give up. It's, you know, anything that's worth doing is going to be hard. Like, you know, for me, like, trying to get to a black belt, I mean, that's probably a decade away for me, but it's going to be worth it when I get there. And same thing being an airline pilot. Like, becoming an airline pilot is hard, and there's going to be some sacrifices and struggles, and
for sure,
anything that's worth doing is going to take that. So just don't give up.
I love it. I mean, that's the general overall and everything in life, right? Just don't give up. And I've seen it with, I mean, a lot of people be like, how'd you create a podcast? How have you gotten a good podcast? How do you get sponsors? And honestly, you might agree to this as well. I think the number one thing is just continually posting content, just being consistent.
Right.
It's not going to happen overnight. Like you said, you might have had 40 videos of travel style videos that maybe didn't really do anything, or maybe they did. I don't know, but I'm just kind of thinking. But just being consistent and being there and continually posting does wonders for your career or what you want. It's the people that try to do it. They do it for a month. They don't get any views. They don't get any sponsorships. They're like, all right, this is stupid. I can't do it. It's like, that's how it works. I didn't get paid. I didn't get any sponsors, make any money off this podcast for the first 5 years I did it. It isn't until recently that I've started getting money, getting sponsors. So it's not overnight. It's hard work and you got to continually do it. And that's how everything is. I'd say.
And you're learning along the way. Like, you're getting a little bit better with every video. Like for me anyway, and you, I'm sure with your podcast, like, you know, I try to learn something new in every video, like a new graphic, a new edit, a new transition or whatever. I try to learn just to be a little bit better or get a different camera and learn how to use a new camera or a new drone or whatever. And the same thing at jiu-jitsu. Like I just try to learn a little bit every day. And when you go flying, you just try to learn a little bit. You don't have to take in the whole lesson, just take in a couple minutes of it and be better at that.
Totally agree. And I was gonna do a rapid fire section, but my phone, for some reason, I still use Evernote, and it locks me out whenever I use a different device. So I need to switch. We'll do it again later. I'll call you up for 5 minutes. We'll do it again later. But
sure, that sounds great.
I wanted to ask you the last question. What do you bring with you? What's like a recording? Do you have just like a massive third bag with cameras on cameras on cameras? Do you have like a professional Sony, and then you have like an Osmo Pocket or your iPhone? Like, what are you bringing to record with?
My standard, if I'm recording a YouTube video, my standard setup will be, I have a Sony ZV-1 Mark II, which is a small point and shoot. I've got a Rode mic that I put on top of it, like a shotgun mic. And then I have a DJI Mini 3 Pro drone. And that having a drone really helps you set the scene for different transitions and set the scene for where you are. Plus, they're fun to fly. And then I'll use my iPhone for a lot of things. I've got a little suction cup thing. I can put it on a window.
Cool. And
do a walking past shot or whatever. Or like sitting on the airplane seat, you can suction it to the screen in front of you. And then usually I have a GoPro or an Insta360 if I'm doing any sort of underwater or action type shots. I'll make sure I have one of those with me. So, so the Sony ZV-1 Mark II, a DJI drone, and then my iPhone and a GoPro or something like that. So that's kind of the basic setup.
What do you do about flying a drone in a different country? Is a lot of, I mean, I'm guessing you know now the rules and local laws, but has it been a lot of just Googling, figuring out like, how do I fly a drone here? Can I fly a drone here? Or is it just, we'll go fly it. If I get arrested, I'll just blame it on the first officer. It's his drone.
I know in London and Paris, like that's a pretty strict no drone zone. I'll try to Google a little bit what the rules are and look up in the DJI app to see. But usually the DJI thing, if you're not allowed to fly there, it won't let you take off.
Yeah, cool. Then, that's good.
I don't know. I figure if the drone lets me take off, then I'm probably good to
go. Has customs ever, like London Customs, have they opened up and like, dude, what are you doing? Are you an influencer? Like, why do you got a drone here? Why you got these cameras? What are you doing, man?
No, it's actually never ever come up. No one's ever looked at 4 cameras in my bag and asked anything about it. So,
well, I love it. Well, hey, Paul, thank you so much for today, man. It's been fun talking with you. I hope you have a great rest of your time off, just living your dream.